Okay, we are live once more, and today we are going to talk about the digital transformation in the Middle East. We will look at digital tech and powering the transformation, especially in the UAE and Saudi Arabia. And even before before we've experienced the pandemic, what we saw is that those countries had ambitious transformation goals. We've seen this in the UAE, where they created a Vision 2021. In Saudi Arabia, they had a Saudi Vision 2030 that outlined how they can transition to a more knowledge-based economy and really make data-driven decision making a reality, and really leverage some of the emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, blockchain technology, and others. And today, businesses in the Middle East are clearly looking at leveraging these technologies and the power of data to really drive innovation, to optimize their performance, save costs, introduce new solutions, deliver some unique customer experiences, and of course, in the current business climate, improve true business and create some true business resilience. And today we'll discuss this digital revolution in the UAE and Saudi, and we'll look at some of the key business trends, the role of data, and we'll look into the future of the region. And I am very pleased to say I am joined here by three very distinct panelists. We have Jyoti Lalchandani from, he was the Group Vice President and the Regional Director at the IDC. We've got Abdul Rahman, the Senior Vice President in the region for Oracle. And we've got Damien O'Gara, the Group IT Director at the Kentech Group. So maybe you can share a little bit more about yourself, what you do, and then we can dive into the topic. So Jyoti, do you want to kick this off?
Sure, Bernard. Hello, everyone. My name is Jyoti Lalchandani, and I'm the regional head for IDC, covering the Middle East, Turkey, and Africa region. I'm based in Dubai, and IDC, as many of you are aware, is a global ICT market intelligence and advisory firm. And so we track the ICT industry globally, and we have a fairly large presence here in the region. So I'm looking forward to sharing some of the thoughts and perspectives with you all today.
Very good. Thank you, Jyoti. Abdul, do you want to introduce yourself? What you work for Oracle? What do you do there? And where are you based?
Okay, thank you, Bernard. It's a pleasure to be with you and the panelists, and also to get questions from the audience. I run Oracle technology for Middle East, Africa, Central Eastern Europe. I'm based in Riyadh. I've been in Oracle for almost 22 years. So I have got the benefit of seeing the transformation of the IT in the Gulf and Middle East, and specifically Saudi. We've been here, as I said, for quite some time, and we had the pleasure to work with many of the government in the region and many of the customers, and we have been highly committed by extending the investment that we always continue to do to the region.
Very good. Damien, do you want to let us know a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, hi everybody, salam alaikum, and thank you, Bernard, for inviting me to this session. So I'm Damien O'Gara. I'm the Group IT Director at Kentech. Been in technology for about 25 years, and I used to work for Oracle a long time ago in the 1990s, so I've seen a lot of change since then. Kentech Group is an oil energy field services company. We are based in Dubai. I'm speaking to you from Dubai now, and we work across the world, working with international oil companies, national oil companies, and EPCs. So we're on a digital transformational journey, and we've covered a lot of ground in the last 18 months, so I look forward to sharing some of that with you today.
Great, thank you very much. So we've got Jyoti and Damien from Dubai, we've got Abdul from Riyadh, and myself from just outside London. I've been in the region many times. I like Dubai and Abu Dhabi, where I've worked with lots of different organizations over the years, from government organizations to private sector organizations. So I know quite a lot about the region, but this is a session really for the users, for the listeners. So I always encourage everyone, if you have any specific questions for any of us, please engage. And also let us know where you're from. This is the first live stream we're doing on a Sunday. This is an interesting experiment. But so far we've had people join from all over the world. So I just pull a few people in that have said hello here. So we've got someone from Dubai, we've got someone from the UAE, another one from the UAE, Saudi, Madrid, New York, Bangladesh, Italy, Mauritius. We've got another one from the region, from Oman, from Iran, and then from Cardiff here in the UK, from Rome, from Mumbai. Good to see people coming from the region, obviously here in Dubai, checking in from Chicago, from Iran, from Tehran, from Colombia in South America, Bangladesh, Dubai, Tunisia. So this is amazing to see. And I can't pull anyone up because so many people are saying hello. This seems to be a hugely popular stream today. So thank you very much. Keep this going. Share with us where you're from and any questions you have in particular. Okay, so maybe we can start with the role of data. Data, I always say data is the fuel for this new industrial revolution that we're going through at the moment. And let's look at how much of a reality this new data-driven decision-making is. Data is obviously fueling other technologies like artificial intelligence and IoT and others. So Jyoti, as an analyst, how do you see effective data management evolve as a priority for governments and businesses in the region? Do you see this as a reality? What impact is it having? And is better data management actually helping businesses to accelerate their growth? So Jyoti, what's your view on that?
Sure, thanks, Bernard. So, we've been tracking this for quite some time across this region. I'm going to share some perspectives from the Middle East, specifically looking at how we see this evolving in the UAE and Saudi Arabia, two key markets, of course, in the Middle East. And I think there's no doubt that, if you really look at the digital transformation journeys and strategies of the public sector as well as the private sector, that data and data management is really at the core factor kind of underpinning a lot of the digital transformation journeys. And we think that, as digital transformation accelerates, data is going to be the core asset, regardless of the industry in which you operate. And so the ability of organizations to extract value from the data is going to be a critical success factor for organizations when it comes to their digital transformation journeys. Now, on the other hand, what we're also seeing is the reality where many of the organizations in our region, and our survey suggests that nearly 40% of medium and large-sized organizations are kind of challenged because the data is very siloed within the organization, right? So only small subsets of data is actually utilized and leveraged within an organization. Now, coupled with that, we're seeing an explosion of data across the enterprise. And our own research suggests that in the next couple of years, we'll have over 140 zettabytes of data that's being created on the digital universe. And so a lot of this data is unstructured or semi-structured data. And so the challenge for organizations is, how do I make sense of all of this? And how do I leverage data? Because without the right quality of data, without unbiased data, technology like AI or analytics is not going to be that useful for organizations. So companies realize that. Now, in the next phase, we think a lot of the focus is going to be around, okay, how do I utilize the data? How do I leverage data for making better informed decisions for the business? But the next phase is really going to be around how do I monetize this data, or how do I create new revenue streams from the data, the vast amount of data that we have across the enterprise.
Very good. Abdul, what are you hearing from your customers at Oracle, especially in the UAE and Saudi Arabia, when it comes to businesses really leveraging data as a business asset to drive growth? What do you see as some of their priorities, and do you feel that they're actually implementing this well in the region? Is data become a priority?
Absolutely. Thanks, Bernard. I would really concur again with Jyoti. I believe we're living the world of data, and data has been really the source of every single business transformation. I think it was said sometimes in 2005, 2006 that data is the new oil, and I believe that itself is a real interpretation to what we are going through nowadays. If you think of it again, if you look at it, being in a region that's mainly driven by oil, since UAE and Saudi are large oil producer. If you link that to the data itself, you would see that there is a real confirmation of such meaning. Data is seen like this, and even more fundamental than oil. And I agree, I fully agree on that. I would also add that, unlike oil, data does not reduce when we consume it. It increases in terms of utility, in terms of using the data, unlike natural resources, whereby you don't get that impacted. And also, if you think of it, and just mentioning that the importance of data, we all know Tesla and the market cap of a company like Tesla, which is much higher than GM, even though they don't ship as much car, but they have high dependency on data. The more data Tesla gather from its self-driving, the more value it can bring to the organization. So if I look into that, and I look into our customers within the region, I believe we have good traction of data utilization. I mean, the second largest oil producing company, ADNOC, in Abu Dhabi, their distribution arm is recently adopting Oracle latest technology on analytics and data platform to increase the retail sales in the gas station outlets. Similarly, another bank in Abu Dhabi, First Abu Dhabi Bank, one of the biggest bank in UAE, is using Oracle Analytics and big data platform to improve the accuracy in their marketing campaign. Also, if I go to Saudi Arabia and I could look at the largest bank, the National Commercial Bank is one of the biggest bank, is using also the data analytics of Oracle and the big data platform to increase their retail. Looking into all of that and looking into the IT industry as we are now, I think there is a high dependency on the data management. However, there are some challenges I would oversee. We did a very quick survey being conducted for almost 700 senior technology decision makers along with Forsters, and it was identified that, which I believe is a challenge, that almost 36% of data is still hosted on-premise, while 20% only on public cloud. And that itself, in my view, eliminates the utilization of data. The more data you have in the cloud, the more accessibility, the more utilization you can have.
Very good. Nice that you mentioned ADNOC, the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company. They were my first customer in the region over 20 years ago when I first came to Abu Dhabi. So that was a great experience and a great introduction to the region, because we ended up going to some of the oil fields. So I remember sitting in the middle of the darkness in the Arabian Sea, having a little shisha with a few friends, which was a great experience.
You still can do that, but in the daytime now.
Yes. Damien, Kentech is obviously a large multinational oil field services company. What has your journey been in terms of using data and creating more data-driven decision-making?
Yeah, thank you, Bernard. So we rely heavily on data every day to make decisions, and it forms a fundamental part of our architecture. We have something we call the visualization layer to give us real-time access to dashboards around the company, everywhere in the company. To improve access to data and to echo the previous points, we've migrated to Oracle Fusion over the last year. We're moving from legacy systems and manual systems into Oracle Cloud. And that gives us much better access and much more availability to data. So I want to touch on a couple of examples of how we use data. So the nature of our business is that we deal with people and assets, and I'm talking on a large scale. So we scale rapidly and we move people around the globe, and the volume is really huge. You can imagine the mobilizing and managing of people is extremely challenging. So data is critical to ensure that we know where people are they safe? And from a data perspective, I think skills are really important as well. It's kind of a commodity for us. So we need to understand, we need to quantify our skills base. We need to understand what our skills and our talent pool looks like in real time. So we need that access in real time when we're talking to our clients. So let me give you an example. Let's say an international oil company is coming to us and says, you know, Kentech, can you deploy 300 people into Russia next week with a particular skill set? We need to be able to answer those questions immediately and say yes or no. So, so that's how we use data. We need our recruitment team needs data at the fingertips to be able to make those decisions, and around skills gaps as well. If we've got lacking in certain areas, how do we fill that gap? So there's hundreds of examples of how data is used at Kentech. I think what's also interesting is how we correlate data between data sets. So, for example, health and safety is massively important to us at Kentech. You can imagine it's kind of the number one priority. And we use lag indicators to see, what incidents, health and safety incidents have occurred in the past. And we can correlate that data with other data sets, for example, engagement. So we can look at, has engagement dropped and have incidents risen in a particular region of the world? And we can take corrective action to look at future KPIs and what we call lead indicators. And then obviously we're a project-based company. So the status of our projects around the world, we need real-time access to data around the profitability of those projects, how many people have we got working on the projects, what's the hands-on tool time, how efficient are they? And what we've set up, in some sites, we've set up what we call digital base camps, which are visualizations of how we're performing on a particular project. So again, data is, so it is like as was previously mentioned, it's like the oil running through the company that we use on a daily basis.
Excellent, thank you. Let's have a look at who's on the stream. It's always nice to actually do a few shout outs to people. So we've got Pascal here from Lebanon. We've got Patrizio from Argentina, James from Maryland. We've got Mena from Egypt, Alexandra from Brazil. We've got a few people from India, from Uganda, from Michigan. Oh yeah, hi Maura. He is an old friend of mine that I haven't seen for many, many years. He's saying hello, which is good to see you on here. We've got Rose from the United States. We've got people from Mexico and Albania, Vietnam, from Africa, and then obviously from the UAE and from Saudi. So it's great to see so many people from the region and beyond. Obviously, some of the changes and some of the trends we've seen, they've already been important trends even before the pandemic struck, and now we are living through this new normal of living with in the middle of a global pandemic. What do you see the role of technology there to make your organization more resilient and actually help you better engage with customers, with employees? So maybe we can look at Kentech again, Damien. Have you seen what I always describe is that we've seen this accelerated change of digital transformation? I think so many organizations had some of those things that we are now seeing in reality on their radar, but suddenly it forced all of us to work from home. We needed to come up with new solutions. Do you have any examples of the impact in your world?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the short answer is yes, digital transformation has definitely accelerated. We're already on a digital journey, but now we're taking a digital leap, I think. With respect to business continuity and when COVID started, you can imagine we had people scattered around the world in remote sites, in hotel rooms, on holiday, in transit, like in airports. So it was critical to have the ability to communicate with them on multiple channels. I was lucky, and my team were lucky, that we already had a migration to Office 365, for example, and we had people on Microsoft Teams. But still, there were many without that capability. So it was a real intensive few months to migrate everybody, onto multiple channels so that everybody could communicate with each other. So yeah, we've really truly seen the benefits of cloud, and I think going forward, building on this, I think the mantra we'll use is whatever we can move online, we will, because we've already seen the benefits, and I think it'll help from a resilience and a business continuity perspective going forward. I think you mentioned opportunity, and I see two opportunities for our staff, and that is work-life balance. You can see people working from home. And also a bring your own device resurgence, right? So I think in 2012, there was a lot of hype about BYOD. We're now looking at that, and we're piloting bring your own device because we've done a large migration to cloud. So for example, I'm now talking to you from my own personal MacBook Air. I've also got my Kentech laptop as well. So I think there's flexibility there. So we're piloting that at the moment. And then in terms of digital initiatives, over the last 18 months, we've been laying the foundation. We've called it modernization rather than digital transformation. We've been laying the foundations and creating a backbone for the future in the cloud. We're really kind of a world-class oil and energy field services company. So in the next 18 months, I think the focus is switching now so that we are providing digital technologies that are closer to our field technicians. So apps and sensors and wearables and safety alarms, these are the things that will be important to us, I think. So there's been challenges as well. So, I think we have to be continually training and retraining people on technology. So, for example, we rolled out the Microsoft Teams technology very, very quickly, but not everybody was necessarily trained straight away. We had to catch up then on the training. And then I think other challenges we've probably got are around cultural acceptance of technology and adoption of technology. These are actually more challenging than the technology itself. And I think you mentioned engagement as well. Digital is very exciting. And most people in Kentech want to be involved, which is absolutely brilliant. So, and I'm not the digital leader in Kentech. Everybody in our business is a digital leader. That's what I'm kind of promoting out there. I want everybody to be coming up with their own initiatives around how they can use digital within their particular business unit. And everybody should be involved in some way. So it's a very exciting journey, and there's plenty of opportunity there.
Very good. Jyoti, as an analyst in the region, then what technologies do you see being fast tracked? Is it around the adoption of more cloud computing? Where do you see digital transformation happening faster than before to really help organizations cope with this new reality?
Is that for me, Bernard? Sorry, I think I had.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I got a couple of things. So when you spoke about cloud, we are seeing cloud really accelerate. So the adoption of cloud, especially during these times, but also it's a trend that we've been tracking for quite some time. We've seen a greater acceleration to the cloud. Our own research suggests that public cloud adoption of public cloud services in this region is growing threefold. So in the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to see a threefold increase in expansion in the amount of dollars that organizations spend on cloud services. And what that means from a data perspective is that we're going to see a growth of almost 20+% in terms of compound annual growth rate over the next 2 to 3 years. Now, there are a couple interesting shifts that are happening. So one is we're seeing a lot more data center investments that are happening in the region. Oracle is here on the call, and they've also made significant amount of investments in data centers and cloud investments. So the hyperscalers are expanding considerably because they're seeing a lot of demand for the services. And organizations, on the other hand, are kind of building a more hybrid strategy. So they're putting certain workloads on the public cloud, certain workloads on the private cloud. So more of a hybrid kind of strategy. So cloud really ticks all the boxes, not just for a CIO or an IT organization, but for the C-suite, so to speak, right? So you've got, it's agile, you build the operational efficiencies, it's manageable. So it ticks a lot of the right boxes. In terms of workloads, we are seeing a lot of investments in business continuity, as you can imagine, business continuity, disaster recovery, a lot around digital commerce, especially in the last few months. There's been a lot of push around digital commerce. There've been investments around collaboration, as you would imagine, but also around systems like applications like CRM. So we're seeing across the board some very interesting workload adoption trends in this region. Now, when you talk about digital transformation, I think it's fair to say that we've in fact done some interesting survey work in the last 2 to 3 months, trying to get a sense of where organizations are on their digital journeys and whether this pandemic has accelerated or perhaps put some programs on hold. And an overwhelming majority, I think it's close to 60% of the CIOs that we spoke to in this region have actually accelerated their digital transformation programs and initiatives. So there's a lot of, in many cases, it's a lot of pressure from the C-suite, but also I think organizations have realized that they can leverage a lot of these digital technologies to transform the organization, be it in the public sector. We're seeing, of course, recent announcements by governments here that they want to kind of streamline and reduce the number of government physical service centers in the region, perhaps have more e-services. You're seeing this in retail, you're seeing this in healthcare, you're seeing this in transportation. So across the board, we're seeing some interesting use cases. Now, a lot of the CIOs that I've spoken to over the last few months have said that they've seen the pace of innovation actually was brought forward at least 3 to 5 years. So things that they had on the horizon in the next 2 to 3 years was essentially fast-tracked because the business and the environment needed it. And they quite frankly, I think we're seeing a greater amount of acceleration around digital transformation. So what this means in the broader context is that the IT organization and the strategy is going to look very, very different as we come out of this pandemic. It's going to look very different compared to where we started off a few months ago. So we've seen a tremendous amount of acceleration of digital programs and projects across this region, across sectors.
Very good. Yeah, and I see this too. One of my customers is Shell, for example, and I've helped them to develop their data strategy, and for Shell it has become a hugely important business asset, and they say the same, that actually data is the new oil and is fueling so much transformative work. So Abdul, you work with lots of different customers in the region. Do you have any examples of how customers have moved to the cloud to help them cope with this new reality? And do you see them adopting other technologies? We've spoken about data and cloud quite a lot, but I'm also interested to learn about IoT, artificial intelligence, extended reality. Is any of this that you see as well? So, and this
Sure.
we can come back to it. But Abdul, let's start with what you're seeing in the region.
Sure. Actually, yes, we have actually a number of customers who have been adopting such technology. First of all, I would like really to congratulate Damien for ensuring the critical business continuity during this testing times. They are one of our customers. They capitalize on this. But as you just rightly said, that cloud does allow business to move quickly and adjust to evolving economic situation. There are several examples I can share with you from customer perspective. We have, for example, Ministry of Health in Saudi Arabia. When the COVID-19 pandemic came in, they launched the chatbot based on Oracle. Monthly questions, an average of almost 2 million hits that goes to that chatbot, responding to any query related to the pandemic itself. And I think that itself demonstrates the continuity of business during this pandemic and ensuring providing all the information needed to the customer. Another example I have again from Saudi Arabia is Taiba University, which is one of the largest educational institutions in Saudi Arabia. Soon after the lockdown, Taiba University was immediately able to offer an online learning platform to more than 70,000 students and ensure that education continuity was maintained, so student doesn't suffer. Taiba University runs an Oracle Cloud infrastructure, which was again migrated to our new data center in Jeddah that was recently launched. Another example we have in Oman, we recently signed with the government to host what they call dedicated center, which means that we copy Oracle data center globally and paste it into the customer's own data center using their own firewalls, maintaining the SLA that Oracle provides globally to them within their own data center. And that's one of the examples that I believe would be a good tool for large organizations to consider. Last but not least, we have another example that uses chatbot, which was mainly the Egyptian commercial international bank. The biggest component of the country's stock exchange was poised for flood of inquiries after the Central Bank of Egypt on March 29th in response to the crisis. At that time, when they introduced the overnight rules changes, they have been among more than 70 changes that was introduced by the bank. They need to be eliminated and they need to be offered to the customer. Within 5 hours, we work with them, ensuring that we develop a chatbot called Dhaki, which means that intelligence in Arabic, providing all answer to the customer and to the inquirer, and it has been already even accepting fully integrated with Facebook Messenger, providing all that type of information. I believe the adoption that we have seen is quite significant, and the customer have been benefited from what cloud can offer to them, enabling them provide all the needed information using the cloud.
Very good. Thank you so much. Let's have a look at who we've got. We've had a few people commenting, saying, yeah, the oil industry is really important to leverage the data that comes from operating oil drills and optimize this. This is a use case that I've seen in Shell too. Predictive maintenance, I think, is another huge use case. Thank you for sharing this. Let's see, we've got, again, people from Peru, from Kenya. There was a question that I can't find now, someone saying the use of technology and data in farming, for example. Someone was referring to the Indian farming industry. Do you have any examples there, anyone? Anything you want to share of how data and new technology can improve the world of farming?
I believe from Oracle perspective, we already have shared some data related to artificial intelligence utilization. I mean, if I can get maybe later on a follow-up, we can give them the details with the exact use cases we have provided. But I recall the engagement in artificial intelligence specifically for the agriculture industry.
Very good. Tracy's saying hello from the Cayman Islands. I loved it there. I had an amazing holiday there. Thank you very much for joining. Someone asking how will data impact human capital? And this is an interesting question, I think. Well, we will come back to some of those questions later on. And the other thing that we said is if any of you, if you have any questions, put them into the comment functions. function, and we will try to dive in after this live chat as well, and try to answer any of them, especially if there are any specific questions for any of us. We talked about data and digital transformation. One of the topics that often comes up is cybersecurity. Maybe we can start with Jyoti's view on this. Do you feel cybersecurity is an important topic in the region, and do you feel that organizations are responding to this well?
Absolutely, Bernard. I think, so we've been tracking CIO perspectives and CIO challenges in this region for over 15 years. And I would say in the last 8 to 10 years, managing cybersecurity, managing risk has been the most important and most challenging area for CIOs. Now, what has changed in the last 3 to 5 years is that it's no longer just a CIO or an IT organization challenge, but it seems to be a challenge and a priority for the entire C-suite, including the CEOs, right? And this has become even more pronounced now when you got remote workforce, from kind of distributed all over the place. Damien spoke about that in his environment. And so when you have a kind of a distributed environment of teams working from all over, it becomes even more challenging because you've got data in transition at various points. So it's an area that's drawing a lot of concern, and rightfully so. Our own research over the last 6 to 8 weeks in the Middle East suggests that it is the number 2 priority area for CIOs in this region. So the first priority, of course, for many of the IT organizations was to ensure, continuity at work. So, making sure all the workers are connected and all the infrastructure requirements are met. But cybersecurity was the second most important area of investment. And we think, as adoption of technologies like cloud, as we got a lot more, as organizations get more digital, regardless of the industries in which they operate, cybersecurity is going to be really at the forefront of not just a CIO agenda, but increasingly the entire C-suite, including the CEO's office. So it's going to be an important area. Now, what we are seeing, though, is that, in the context of cloud, we are seeing a strong uptake of cloud, as I mentioned earlier. And we're also seeing many organizations, take a more positive attitude. So we're seeing organizations kind of putting aside some of the security concerns on the side. We're seeing a lot of interesting workloads like mission critical applications now on the cloud in sectors that are highly regulated. So the banking, financial services sector is something that comes to mind, which is a highly regulated environment. But having said that, organizations are now thinking about, how do I leverage technology like cloud? How do I ensure that it's more secure? And there's a sense that the cloud-like infrastructure, especially with in-country data centers that are being provided, are far more secure. So there's a sense that security is important, but cloud offers that advantage for organizations. But cybersecurity in general is definitely a top-line agenda item for CIO, but also the entire C-suite.
Very good, Damien. In Kentech, then, how important is cybersecurity there, and what has been your journey of improving the cybersecurity for your own organization?
Yeah, thanks, Bernard. Obviously, it's massively important. It's up there with your safety and security. We deal with employee data and client data, so confidentiality is critical. We've got to look at the external and internal threats, and we've made some investments last year in both, so data leak prevention and from a vulnerability protection. So we're constantly investing in cyber technologies, advanced threat protection, and multi-factor authentication. These technologies are really important to us. I think you've got to, when you're dealing with the cloud, I think you've got to balance the usability. I think one of the challenges is usability versus security. That's really a kind of challenge that you've got to get the balance right. Training employees is and awareness campaigns are really important to us as well. And I think when we're selecting new products, from software as a service vendors, that's the first question I ask about security. How secure is this product? Where's it hosted? And how is it protected? So I'm hoping the answers are data, tier 3 and tier 4 data centers and perimeters and physical perimeters, etc., etc., etc. So I want to be able to sleep easy at night. So it is very, very important.
Very good. Abdul, you obviously work for Oracle, and as a vendor that provides cloud services to your customers, do you see this as a joint responsibility to make sure the data is secure? What's Oracle's role in all of this? What's the customer's role, and how do you make sure that you create an environment where you can prevent cyber attacks and keep data safe?
I will echo actually Jyoti's comment about data security is in the top priority of the business leaders and the policymaker within the organization. No doubt that data security is a critical element for many organizations for them to ensure continuity of business. And we have seen many of the data breach that has impacted the market cap of organization for a reason or another. Therefore, data security is critical. From cybersecurity point of view, I think that the cyber attacks within UAE and Saudi, specific, since we are talking again with this specific cluster, I believe they are on the rise, as we now see a similar sentiment being echoed by business leaders in the Middle East about the importance of using cloud for safeguarding their organization against cyber threat. From Oracle perspective, the way we see it, Oracle has been initially actually founded based on the security solution, and that's why we have probably quite larger scale in the security domain. We believe in security, and it has been a priority from day one of the initial launch of Oracle itself. We are countering a cybersecurity challenge within the world's first autonomous database. As you know, Oracle a couple of years ago announced the first autonomous database, and till now, it is the only autonomous database. The way we look at the autonomous, yes, it is self-driving, yes, it is self-securing and self-repairing, but the most importantly, the autonomous itself, in such a market where we are now and looking into the cloud, autonomous would always eliminate the human error. It does not eliminate the human interaction. The more the chances of having possible error within human engagement, it's highly likely to happen versus autonomous. So we believe that the autonomous can be a game changer in the database industry, and we believe that itself would be a revolution in the technology industry. So we gathered all of our 40 years of experience in database management and security and brought that into an autonomous database, and we're starting to see high adoption from our customer engagement, capitalizing on the autonomous. So I believe autonomous is the way to drive security-free engagement because of the elimination of the human error, provided the high security it provides, taking into consideration the Oracle Autonomous Database I just mentioned.
And for me, it's a great example of actually leveraging artificial intelligence on your own products to provide a better service to your customers. So absolutely. I've had a few questions come in here. There's one from Khalil saying, beside data confidentiality and security, do you think there's also a need to define data ethics and policies around this? And anyone wants to take that? Any views on that? Abdul, do you want to respond?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Is that how important is data ethics? So it's all good to have security and confidentiality of the data, but it's also important to have the right ethical frameworks that the data is used in the right way. I guess this is the idea of the question.
Absolutely, and I believe the most important thing of managing the data is to have the right probably governance model, and that's why when you look at autonomous, it gives you the right classification of data, because one of the main I would say, achievement that we gain throughout the cloud engagement is that you have a variety of information and many information that came across. If there is no proper data classification to identify the confidentiality of such specific data that might go into the encryption level, it would be an issue. So I believe ethics is critical in defining the data classification, in ensuring, I believe, the right governance of defining the data itself.
Very good. And there's one question here from Mustafa saying, how can we use AI, IoT, blockchain, and so on to get an idea about the next pandemic and take precautions? So maybe we'll answer this as part of a look into the future. That what I would like to know from you now is if you look ahead and say, okay, we're now a few years ahead, what are your predictions in terms of the adoption of digital technology in the region, in the UAE and in Saudi Arabia? And what technologies do you see on the horizon that will make a real impact both in government and companies in those countries? Or maybe what are some of your hopes for the future? How will this technology change our world? Damien, do you want to kick this off?
Yeah, it's fine. Thanks, Bernard. So for me, I think it's a maturing of image processing with AI, machine learning, computer vision, and automation. So that over the coming couple of years, those maturities kind of maturity and merging of those technologies. So the other day, for example, I met with a very, very cool startup company that were image processing very detailed wiring diagrams, electrical wiring diagrams and piping diagrams. And from that image, they were generating an estimate and how much is this going to cost, right? And the scans included red line marker pen, and it came up with accurate cost. That's the sort of that would take us weeks or months to. It's an activity that would take us weeks or months, right? So you can get now you can see when these technologies become mature, and you apply automation as well and digital workers, you can see how this is going to be a real interesting area. So image processing, and I think computer vision is also an area that will become more prevalent. For example, in our industry, the ability for a camera to detect a fire or a hazard and alert somebody to alert the management team that there's something out of the ordinary going on. So I think, it's a mix of AI, machine learning, and image processing.
Very good. This answers also one of the questions that we've had. The question was, what are your views on adopting AI computer vision based technology across the industry? So well done for taking and covering this. Jyoti, what do you see? What do you predict? What are your hopes for the future in terms of the digital transformation in the region?
So, the sense we've got is that, a lot of these underlying technologies that we spoke about, I think there's still a long way to go for organizations in this region to kind of adopt, and leverage these technologies. So cloud, obviously, I think is we're going to see a strong adoption of cloud, focus on operational efficiencies, the agility discussion, the move from CapEx to OpEx. I mean, these are, it's a no-brainer. I think we're going to see a very strong uptake for cloud. The second one I'd like to highlight is, I think, AI, cognitive, machine learning, all of those elements, where, you can see that, governments in this region, both in Saudi Arabia as well as here in the UAE, have designed and kind of positioned this as a national level strategy, right? Is how do we leverage technology like AI? How do we get the right skill sets, and how do we leverage this to drive growth in a sense? So I think AI analytics is going to be, and machine learning is going to be a significant driver for spending, but also it will remain an important part of the strategy for the Gulf. The other element I think Damon spoke about is around automation, right? And I'm seeing a lot of focus around automation. We think on the horizon, and IDC calls it the next chapter, and we call it autonomy, where the systems and machines are going to be able to process, execute, on behalf of humans. So autonomous computing technologies like quantum and all of those areas is really, I think, is on the horizon. That's going to fundamentally change a lot of things. I would also highlight collaborative. I think we're going to see a lot more innovation around collaborative technologies, and what we've seen, at least in the last, during the pandemic and the ongoing pandemic, is a greater focus on improving collaboration within the organization, with partners, with stakeholders. So I think we're going to see a lot more innovation coming through around building collaborative technologies to enable the future of work, so to speak. And then finally, I would also say security. I think on the security side, we expect to see a lot more consolidation in the industry. We're going to see a lot of acquisitions. We're going to see a greater focus on security. So I expect to see a lot more emphasis around security. So I would say cloud. I would look at AI analytics. I would look at collaboration. I would think about autonomy and autonomous computing, and security. These are the 4 or 5 key areas that I think are interesting things to look forward to in the next chapter.
I completely agree. And Abdul, what are your predictions for the future of the digital transformation in the region, in UAE and in Saudi, and have you got any hopes of how the future might change and how it will hopefully make it better?
Absolutely. I think first of all, the pandemic, no doubt, that has made a lot of changes, and life after the pandemic will be surely not the same as it was before. If I take a snapshot a year ago and define the prediction, I think more or less we will be having the same prediction. The only difference I would see is the speed. Because of the pandemic, it expedited the process. Part of the prediction was the cloud-led transformation. It was there probably a year ago, but now it will be hugely accelerated because of delivering a unique online shopping experience, or ensuring the availability of critical citizen services would ensure the acceleration of cloud as number one. Second, even if you think of it from a supply chain application, I believe they would continue and actually highly increase dependence on augmented reality, virtual reality, blockchain, machine learning, and IoT. If you take, again, a snapshot a year ago, probably that would be part of their prediction, part of their strategy, but now it becomes a survivability, the way I see it. Data science will be definitely increasing, automated and embedded into analytics and data management system. And last but not least, I believe that Internet of Things would be key enabler to various smart city initiatives. We started to see it recently. A week ago, the government of UAE has announced the change or the close down of almost 50 government institutions moved into digital transformation. That itself is a confirmation of digital transformation. So from my end, I believe artificial intelligence, augmented reality, blockchain, machine learning, IoT, autonomous, all of those elements were there, I would say, a year ago, but probably at that time we were looking into a life cycle of 3 to 5 years. Now I think it would become faster, and I would anticipate if anyone has not yet executed, this will be probably highly impacted. If you are in the retail, then you will be potentially out of business, if that's the case.
Yeah, and this is a very good point that I can only underline. I think I've talked about future technologies for a long time now. I wrote my book, Tech Trends and Practice, which looks at the 25 biggest technology trends that are driving this fourth industrial revolution just before the pandemic. And all of those technologies are still as relevant. And I recently did a live stream on the 5 biggest technology trends post-COVID. So anyone interested can find this on my YouTube channel. But I completely agree that lots of those technology trends were on a wish list, and now they are core to the survival of companies. So those that are missing this transformation boat will clearly be left behind. And yeah, so thank you very much for your input today. This has been a really interesting session. This was the first live stream we did specifically for one region. So, but what was nice for me is that even though we did this on a Sunday, we've had people join us from all over the world. I think we span all 5 continents with people saying hello here. So this is wonderful. Thank you very much. And what Jyoti, Damien, Abdul, and I will do is over the next few days, have a look at some of your questions that we haven't answered and hopefully answer them for you. For anyone, if you ever want to rewatch any of these live streams, they will all sit on my YouTube channel, and they will also be turned into a podcast, so you can either listen to them or view them. So if you subscribe to my podcast or go to my YouTube channel, there's everything you need to find. Thank you very much and have a lovely day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bernard. Bye-bye.
Thank you.